So today I'm doing my movie review on Temple Grandin. Temple Grandin was a American academic and animal behaviorist. She was known for sketching and building the cattle dip, which is basically moving the cattle through a series of curves, but she did it in a more humane way that kept them calm because she noticed the patterns of which they would walk, and when with interaction with people, she noticed that they would love to walk in circles, and she noticed that she just noticed a lot of little things. So when she built it, she noticed that when you hang things on something, it makes like a rough patch. They could see that. She's seen that they were sensitive to shadows. She's seen that, like, she really got on her hands and knees and crawled through the original cattle dip and made her diagnosis and her sketch off of that. And she was seeing that they can see the shadows of the water, that they can see the ridges, and it makes them scared because it's not a smooth surface. She really dove into it and seeing that they actually have feelings and a mind and a pattern and way they do things, and she based her design off of how she can see a cattle moving. And yeah, she had a whole lot of great things that she did, and I'm gonna get into those in this movie review. So when Temple was 4, they or the psychologist diagnosed her with infantile schizophrenia. It's a form of autism. Autism, by definition, being a neurodevelopmental disorder marked by deficits in reciprocal social communication and the presence of restricted and repetitive patterns of behavior. So the repetitive patterns of behavior, they just repeat a lot of things. They do things in a certain way. They like things a certain way. That's just how they do things. The reciprocal social communication, the deficits of that, they can't really understand a whole lot of things with social interaction. They're not good at social interaction. They're at a deficit in that standpoint because they can't understand human emotion, or they don't gravitate to that as much. They're at a deficit in understanding that. So that's what basically she went through. As far as a example with her specifically, she was good with animals, but she wasn't as good with people. Like, she bonded with animals more than she did with people, whether it was horses, cattle, or whatever. She bonded with them more. She felt like she understood them more. She felt closer to them than animals. With the repetitive patterns, it was showed that when she would go to new spaces, she would feel uncomfortable because it was different. Or when things changed from their normal pattern or their normal place in her mind, then she would have a panic attack. Or like, it was one scene where her room was different, or her room was, the sign that said it was her room was off her door, and she ended up having a panic attack because she felt everything was different. When she walked in, everything was moved around. Their sign wasn't on the door, and it just new places really made her upset. It really got to her, basically. So it was things like that's what the symptoms of her disorder was. Some of the stigmas for autism is, especially then, when she was diagnosed when she was 4, the psychologist had told her that at the time their studies thought that the reason for autism was because that child lacked a connection with the parents at an adolescent time where they needed the most. And we know now that that's false, but at the time that's what their studies were showing. And in the movie, it showed that that wasn't the case because her mom really tried and gave the effort and wanted to hug her and give her the physical love that she needed. But it was Temple that didn't allow that. She just didn't like hugs. And we know now that it's just genetics and different brain characteristics that go into having autism. And at the time, that's what they thought that was. But in actuality, it wasn't that. When she was younger, all the way up till she was in college, people would make fun of her, or if she had a mental breakdown, or she would have a panic attack, or they would like say certain things and she wouldn't understand the jokes, she would get angry, and then they would make fun of her for that. And it was messed up, especially to see it on a movie wise. But I'm pretty sure in real life it was even worse because, kids can be cruel or whatever. So that's a bad thing. And people think that people with autism are just dumb or stupid, when in actuality she was far from stupid. She was very intelligent. So it's just because she wasn't good with social interaction that they put that as far as she was slow or stupid, or that she just wasn't normal, and they made fun of her for that, and that's what happened to her. Some of the mental health issues, mainly it was just doubting herself. It was some points in the movie where they would be like, she was talking to people and she would like start talking about things she cared about, and it seemed weird to them, and their facial reactions or the way they would talk, she picked up on that, she noticed that, and it made her think less of herself because it seemed like they were judging her from their reactions and their responses. So it was like a party or whatever, and she was talking about how the things that she built were written about in the magazines, and how she's studying cows mooing, which is really just their way of communicating that something is about to happen. They're communicating with each other, and she could hear the frequencies of the moos, and they thought she was a crazy person. So when they all left, she had a mental breakdown, and she was crying about it, and it was like she doesn't understand their emotions. She doesn't understand like why they look a certain way, or like the octaves in their voices change. It's like she felt like they were judging her, and she was correct, and it made her feel bad in that way, and she felt like she was different, even though she knew she was different. They always told her she was different but not less, and she felt like she was different and less in those times, to a certain degree. I think the movie really helps society's understanding about the disorder autism, because in the movie it shows the pitfalls, it shows the downside, the tantrums, the spinning, the lack of social interaction, or being mute to your four. It shows the downside, but it also shows that there can be a an upside to that if you continue to work at it, or if people push you and you find your own niche, you can still thrive even with a disability. And it showed that with Temple, from being a child, and she would have tantrums, to her going to a farm and figuring out how to calm herself down through a cattle holder, then ultimately building her own cattle holder. And she used to calm her down even through adversity, because they said she couldn't even have her cattle holder in her dorm room. So she did a experiment where she had different people come in, like get into her cattle holder, and she jotted down how they felt, whether they felt claustrophobic or relaxed, or like she had a whole list of things, and she did like a whole study on it, and she wrote about it. She got the results and gave it to the dean to actually have a reason to keep it. And it showed how passionate she was about things that she cared about, or she didn't really understand human expression or human emotions. She understood passion, and she showed passion about things that she really cared about. So I really think that the Temple Grandin movie really showed like a good amount of things that can come out of being autistic, because it showed that being autistic isn't always a disadvantage. Like, you can also have, like, being autistic can help you level up. It can give you different abilities that normal people don't have, like the things like photographic memory, or seeing things in angles, or being able to build and sketch things out, like the cattle dip or the cattle holder. Just the things that she had built, and it was all due to her autism. It was all due to her being at a deficit or a disadvantage, that these abilities were given to her, and she was able to use them for positive things and to make things that help people. So all in all, I think the movie was a good representation of autism